Well, good afternoon, racing fans, and welcome to another edition of the Winning Way Show Live, where I'm going to chat to you about lots of current affairs and pick six carryovers, and we'll be joined by Steve Reid, who will chat to me about lots of things that he can enlighten us on. So, should be fun, and hopefully the picture's okay, and hopefully the sound is good, and that you're all able to get what we're talking about. Just put the camera, the microphone correct there. Well, there it is. So let's chat firstly about what we're going to talk about was pick six carryovers. And what I basically want to tell you is that I've been investigating, have the pick six carryovers been used properly and to their rules and to the regulations and to the amounts that have been carried over. And basically, I've gone through the pick sixes, and I'll just give you some figures, so just to whet your appetite as to how much pick six carryovers were in the last 12 months from the 1st of August to the 1st of August 2020. Remember, we didn't have 2 months of racing, but we carried over 23.462 million rand, which is just under 24 million rand was carried over on pick sixes in South Africa alone. I'm not talking about any other bets, and I wasn't able to get into any other bets. So the rules of the pick six state, and this is what we need to know, that the pick six carryovers need to be used within 12 months. That's the first thing. So I asked Robert Garner, who's in charge of pick six carryovers, to give me some facts and figures on this. And he basically said that he couldn't do it this afternoon and would be with me next Friday to be able to discuss this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the picture so you can look forward to next Friday and see what happens. Firstly, there's a few rules about carryovers as far as SAF totes is concerned. The same pool gets the carryover as where it was created. So if it's a trifecta carryover, it goes to the trifecta pools. South African racing gets all the South African pool carryovers. Overseas racing gets designated carryovers to their pools from the various countries. So Australia pools will get carryovers to Australia pools. So my question to Patrick Loker, who's the KwaZulu-Natal betting executive, was, I've never seen a pick six trifecta carryover, quartet carryover in any Australian pool, and I know that they get carried over quite regularly. So there are a lot of carryovers there. Where are they? So Patrick has said to me that the auditors look after all of this, and that they have audited statements on the carryovers, all the carryovers. My next question was, well, who are the auditors and who employed them? So he says, well, they're the Phumelela auditors who do it, and he hasn't checked them. So my next question was obviously, will you check them and find out? So he said, yes, he's got some spreadsheets and he'll go through them as well. So I'll have answers from him next week as far as the carryovers are concerned. The good news for you as far as the carryover is concerned, and this is what Patrick told me, and Robert Gardner told Patrick, is that there will be 10 million rands worth of carryovers added to the pools in the next 6 months between now and the end of January. They normally carry over the pick sixes at the end of the month because they generate the best turn, and one accepts that, churn at least, and one accepts that. And certainly it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we start marrying my figures with their figures, because I don't believe, and this is the crux, that 24 million rands being used in carryovers in the last 12 months. I'm going to have to go back to the 12 months 2018 to 2019 and work out if those carryovers have been used from 2019 and 2020. And obviously Robert Garner and Patrick Loker will have to help me in this because they do have the official figures. I only have figures that I've taken out of every single pick six pool that I've looked at from in fact, this week until 1st of August 2019. What is interesting is that I can tell you that the carryovers since the 1st of August up to now amount to 5,864,000. And they're made up of Greyville and Scottsville, 1,400,000 and 1,800,000. So KwaZulu-Natal. And remember, they've got to go back to the same district. So KwaZulu-Natal have earned 3.2 million rand worth of carryovers from the 1st of August until today. Kenilworth haven't had any. Durbanville haven't had any. Fairview's had 1,214,000. And Gauteng has had 1,429,000. So there's 5,800,000 for this racing season, which is 1st of August until now. Remember, the racing season only had 10 months, wasn't 12 months even. Now, let's move on to the next thing. And this was what I found very interesting. Desiree van Andrade, who's an advocate, wrote an article in Turf Talk, and a very interesting article where she said that she didn't agree with me as that get rid of the NHRA would be the best start. Well, Desiree, let's start that I never ever said get rid of the NHRA. I believe the NHRA should be the regulatory body, okay, and only that. They should regulate horse racing. They should rubber stamp ownerships, registrations, all those type of things, which they do anyway. And they should run the policing of horse racing. But they should not do the things that they also do on top of that, which is race day, and that includes starters, handlers at the starting stalls, handicapping, which falls under their umbrella, and then the laboratory. And all those things would save us a huge amount of money, because remember, they're not funded by government at all. So all your headings, which are very interesting, and I applaud you for putting a government model of regulation. She says there are 4 models of regulation. Well, we could never have a government model of regulation. That's no good. Private monopoly model, that certainly doesn't work out. We don't need no private monopoly. Ministerial regulation, that won't work either, because that goes back to the government. An independent regulator, well, that's exactly what they should be, a total independent regulator. And you've hit the nail on the head. And I applaud you for answering this. And let's hope that, we can go forward and do something constructive, because that's what we're trying to do. You must understand, I have a reputation in this industry of being a firebrand and controversial and maybe deconstructive in some areas, but actually I'm a fixer. I look at a problem and try and fix it. And that's why I look at the pick sixes. And as I said to Patrick Loke in my meeting with him yesterday, surely we need to be completely transparent and show on our screens what the pick six carryover moratorium is, and what money is available for pick six carryovers and where it's going to be used. And it should be extensively used. Move on to, and that's why I believe I could be of some help with Teletrack or whatever the new television station will be, because I would like to be involved in their programming and their marketing. That I think is my forte, and I think that I could really do well helping them program and market the product, the South African racing product and the international product as we have it. In essence, the model's good, but it just needs so much tightening up and better communication with the role players. And the role players are the certainly, as far as Teletrack's concerned, the punters are vitally important. There've got to be changes made, and we're looking forward to that type of thing happening. As far as this is all concerned, I'm just having a look at the program there and seeing what else we've got to do, because we're going to be talking to Steve Reid about V. Moodley and the NHRA with this debacle that's happened at Fairview. It is the most distressing thing I've ever heard. And Mohammed, nice having you here. I don't for one moment believe that Hedley McGrath or Yvette Bremner would have done anything wrong. I believe that they're upstanding citizens. I think they pay their taxes, they pay their people properly. They both run very, very good businesses. And what has happened here is that, as what has happened with the grooms in a majority of cases, where all the grooms bandy together, whether they're being badly treated or not, because someone has got a cause for complaint or unhappiness. And so they work as a sort of collective, which is not really fair. And I know we certainly were involved. Saeed, nice to have you. Certainly, I was very involved with the running of Rheinkiesfontein from day one until I left there. And what I always preached to the trainers, and I said to them, we do not deal as a collective with grooms. We employ them individually, and therefore we deal with them individually. We're not under any banner. If the NHRA licensed them, which I think is probably coming, and they probably should license them, then it's a whole different ballgame. But the bottom line is that trainers run businesses of racing horses for various clients, and they employ their staff. And surely you can't have someone dictating to them as to how they should be paying. Steve Reid's on the line. Let me get him on the phone. Steve, good afternoon.
James, are you well?
I'm very well. Can we get a bit of volume? How are you placed?
Yeah, is that better?
Little, but I'm not sure if anyone can hear. Can everyone hear out there?
Do you want me to call you back and try a better line then, James?
No, that's fine. I think that you're okay. Yeah. You're on it's pretty clear, but it's a bit soft. That's all.
Okay. Well,
like what happens with old people like me. Pretty clear, but it's soft. Steve, nice to have you back again. We had a very in-depth discussion about the NHRA, and I've just been chatting about what the advocate wrote in Turf Talk, and I think that she didn't quite grasp what we're getting, but basically what she recommended and what we recommended is absolutely right, that they should be a regulatory body run by racing or run for racing, and most of the compartments or departments that they try and run should be taken away from them and run independently by racing. You've got a very close look at them, and you know exactly what's going on. What do you make of that?
James, in principle, I have no problem with that. I actually agree with the majority of what you said. And what we're basically left with, James, are then the individuals who are currently in place. Why is this authority not performing the way it should? And I think I went into detail last time. I don't want to rehash what I've already spoken about, James. And what I really wanted to chat to you about today, I haven't had time. I've just got in from the office, so I didn't hear what you said before, and I don't know if anything has been mentioned about this groom incident in Port Elizabeth.
Well, what I said was I said that I have no doubt that Hedley McGrath and Yvette Bremner run upstanding and proper businesses where they pay their taxes and do things correctly and above board. And what worried me about this whole thing is what has happened in the past, where the grooms have become a collective, whether they work for one stable or a number of stables, and they work as a collective to try and get their demands met. And I've always advocated to the trainers that you run your own businesses and you should deal with your grooms on your own basis. But that maybe the groom should be registered with an authority like the NHRA as a licensee of the racing industry.
Okay, I've got a couple of thoughts to go with this, James, and let me start by saying that I've spent a good number of years racing as an owner in Port Elizabeth. I've spent 5 very happy years there, and I think by my own tally, I've had about 70 winners. So I know that racing community very well. And let me tell you something, James. These are proper racing people. I mean, there's good people down in Port Elizabeth. They've proven themselves as horsemen. I mean, I think people like Alan Greef and Gavin Smith don't have to stand back for many trainers in South Africa. They obviously don't get the type of stock that some of the bigger guys do. But their record is there for all to see. And they've won in the major centres, often with horses that are sort of coming in at a fraction of the price of the competition. And what happened this week really, really saddened me. And you know what, let's take the emotion out of it for the time being. I was really saddened by the death of a horse. But the one thing that I'm really, really concerned about, James, is when we look at it, I've got to ask the simple question, could this have been avoided? And the reason, are you there, James?
Yeah, I can hear. Yes, it definitely could have been avoided.
Yeah, and the reason I ask this, James, is because this is a long-standing, simmering feud, basically, between the grooms at Yvette's stable and Yvette and Headley. And, I've listened to a couple of voicemails floating around where Headley has spoken. I mean, they've had a high court interjunction against these guys. They've done everything by the book, James.
Yes.
Now, there are a couple of things that really concern me. When you start looking at apportioning blame, who do we blame for this? Do we blame Yvette and Headley? I don't think so. Do we blame the grooms? Of course we blame the grooms, but how did we get to the stage where they were physically able to do what they've done? Now, if what Headley was saying in his one voice clip is true, and then why would he say anything else? This was a gradual build-up. Apparently, this started on Monday, built up on Tuesday, got a bit worse on Wednesday, and yesterday was the big day. And I'm saying a couple of things. The first thing is, this happened on Phumelela property. Why was there not sufficient security to at least divert it? Why was there no intelligence? I'm told that the grooms stay in a squatter camp basically across the road from Phumelela, from Phumelela's
Fairview.
at Fairview, yeah. It's just I don't understand this. But in our first chat, James, I spoke to you about the situation down in PE, and I've asked, where is the chief staff in the Eastern Cape, Langa Downs? Where is he? There's been no announcement. I've been told a couple of things about why he's not there, but it's all conjecture at this stage. But if you think about it, James, and if you have a look at the staff's report, you go and have a look at racing since the shutdown ended in PE, and you have the majority of your race day chairmen are actually virtually doing their jobs. Guys like Arnold Hyde, Lyle Anderson, Hutchison, Dave Rahili, and the guys on the ground are actually apprentices. They're basically two trainees and one probation staff. Now, the probation staff, the only thing I think that he doesn't do, if I go through the history, he's obviously a multi-talented guy because he seems to be doing everything but clean the toilets at Fairview. I'm just asking, who was on the ground prior to this attack from the NHRA side of things? I don't think there was anyone. It's all good and well for the NHRA to wash their hands of it, but it's the stable. It's no use bolting the stable door after the horses bolted. Excuse the pun. I mean, to send a delegation through yesterday after the pawpaw hit the fan, James. What use is that? What use is that? I mean, we're talking about an organisation that costs the industry 84 million rand a year, and they can't do the basics.
I agree with you. V. Moodley was on E! News, okay? And what he said on E! News was that they'd met with Phumelela, and nothing else that he said, this is my comment, nothing else he said gave me any confidence or hope that they are remotely effective in governing this industry. That was my comment. Because he just tapped around it. He never gave anything substantive. And it was actually, it was frightening to listen to V. Moodley's answer to the E! News reporter who was asking him on South African network news.
Yeah. If we take things further, James, while we're having a go and while we're asking the questions, Phumelela are just as bad. I mean, your racing executive isn't even in the country.
Yeah.
What extra security was organized? It's all good and well that we're now all armed to the teeth for the race day. But it's rubbish. I mean, I spoke to Jauda Mata earlier on today, and the damage that this has done overseas is immeasurable, James. I mean, he has members. I mean, one of their horses was apparently badly hurt, and I really, really hope that it recovers. But apparently the early prognosis is not great. But Joe says one of the most difficult things he's had to do is to explain to these syndicate members that their horse has been maimed. I mean, I don't know, James. It's really worrisome, and one thing that really irked me yesterday was halfway through this whole craziness, and my phone lit up at about 9 o'clock, and I had a lot of messages, I think, like most people in racing. But I didn't have the time because I was quite busy to get really involved in it. But I basically went through a couple of tweets a little bit later, and an ex-Kenilworth Racing director had the brainwave he had the temerity to make the suggestion that they should close PE down and send everyone back to the Cape and send everyone to the Cape.
Well, Steve, I must just stop you there. You know where that comes from, okay? That's because the Cape can't fill their fields, so they'd like to have all those PE trainers there. There can be no other reason.
If anything, the Cape should be closed.
PE racing is actually a thriving industry, and its pools and turnovers show that it really is a good industry, and it probably makes less loss than any of the other centers in South Africa. The point about this whole thing is, and there's only one point: how did it get to this? And you've given the background and the outline, and how it got to this, in my reading of what you've told me, is that there's no one who actually can do something about it timelessly. Now, Patrick Davis, the racing director, lives in England, apparently. I mean, one of the guys never stops about how can you have the guy running racing in Phumelela who's living in England? Well, that's absolutely right,
He's not wrong. I agree with you 100%, James.
So who makes a decision? So how do you get a guy who's living in England to make a decision on Monday morning? He obviously gets a mail or a phone call or whatever. There's trouble brewing in Fairview. If Ed Bremner's grooms look like they're going to try and cause some disruptions, what do we do about it? If you're here, you jump in an aeroplane, you get down to PE, you go and sign up with Scorpion Security or whatever, and you say, come on, boys, come and look after this place until this thing simmers down. That's what I would do, okay? Because I'm a fixer and you're a fixer. People hate fixers in this business because we come out with things that other people don't like hearing. So Mr. Davis, who's been a lifelong friend of mine, really is got to be called to a stance here. He really, Patrick has lost the ball. He's dropped it. The situation is not how it should be. And many other Phumelela executives are the same. And you start looking at things like Teletrack, which to me is the biggest concern we have, because that is our picture to the world. And when you see how bad the picture is, and you watch a race meeting that we had last week from Ireland that they've beamed on channel 208. I sent a message to everyone to watch it. Most people didn't know about it. Firstly, Teletrack should have notified every single person in racing every single day that this was coming and that they'd be able to watch the meeting, because obviously it would have helped increase turnovers if people know about it. There wasn't one thing on Teletrack, in my opinion. They've got clocking the gallop and all these type of things, which are supposedly voice notes for the punter. Did anyone mention on 208? And Neil Andrews is another mate, but really he works at Teletrack and at Supersport. Surely he should have been telling them and shouting from the rooftops, look, you're going to be able to watch us. But what came out of it was the picture was unbelievable in high definition, and the presentation was, as usual, world class. There they did 3 or 4 hours. They did more for the Irish racing industry than we've done for our industry in the last 10 years.
Yeah. James, I'd like to address a very thorny issue. And I think at the core of this whole problem is the issue of grooms and where they are in racing. Now, I understand. I mean, I've been down in, as I say, I've had horses in PE for over a decade. And believe me, I say without any fear of retribution, that you really get some guys that literally come out of the bush there. That don't know how many legs a horse has got, that are illiterate, that cannot speak any language but causa. Okay? So
Yeah.
I get that. And traditionally, I think the grooms down in the Eastern Cape have been a hell of a lot more militant than grooms up here, for sure. I don't know too much about the Western Cape, and I know nothing about KZN. But besides that, James, no one wants to take responsibility for the grooms. And why I say that, James, why is it that the grooms are the only sector within racing that are not licensed by the NHRA? And sure, I hear the argument that the trainers are their employers, but so are your assistant trainers, so are your stable employees. I believe that the only reason the grooms are not licensed by the NHRA is the fact that they cannot contribute to their coffers. If the grooms were earning big money, James, believe me, they would be licensed in a heartbeat. Now, the one thing that I will say is, how can we expect the grooms to ever be brought to book, to ever feel part of the whole racing experience if they get zero recognition? Now, I'm not a bleeding heart, James. I think every groom that was involved in what happened yesterday they should never, ever put their hands near a horse again. But that's not practical. What is practical is coming up with some suggestion that will stop this type of abuse going forward. Because what's going to happen, it's going to die down until until it's off the radar again. And it's going to happen again, James.
Correct.
And grooms in other centres might be looking at this and thinking, well, this is the way to air our grievances, because look at how the guys jump when this type of thing happens. And God forbid it happens anywhere else. But I'm saying, James, that I had a meeting with V. Mudley, an informal meeting, just after he started his job at the NHRA. And he told me in no uncertain terms that one of his priorities was to bring the grooms on board. He was talking about having a register and all this type of
How long ago was that?
Maybe 18 months ago.
You've done a lot towards that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, So, while I'm here, James, I once again have to ask exactly what role are the NHRA board playing in steering the ship?
Well,
because let me tell you what, there's been a deafening silence from that Austor organization in terms of what happened yesterday. And I'm told quite reliably that there was actually a discussion, and let me rather not say this because I opened myself up too much. But let me say, let's judge them by their actions, James.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened. Yeah. Nothing has happened. Why has nothing happened? Why have we? I mean, there was a presentation to Parliament. There have been two presentations to Parliament. One in, I think, 2010, one in 2013. Where statements like groom schools and things like that were made to Parliament. It was absolute rubbish, man. And you know what? James, I'm so frustrated. I mean, I love racing. And I look at where we're going and the absolute lack of direction, the apathy, the absolute dire quality of individual that are in positions that they should never be in. And you know what? Let them come for me. I don't actually care. The discovery would be worth it because I won't be going back into their kangaroo court again. They can take me on in an open court. But the truth of the matter is we are impotent. We do nothing. And we just allow things to slide. That pile under that NHRA carpet, it's not a mound anymore. It's a freaking Everest. I mean, we can list all the rubbish that has happened at that place over the last couple of years, but there's been absolute no action to remedy the situation. And I'm afraid it's going to be the same now.
Steve, I really appreciate what you have to say because I think that's the great way to end it. Without us, this industry has no one. I don't believe that any other format or podium have the guts or the courage to actually stand up to these guys. And I really appreciate what you got to say, because I do believe that you have a valid contribution to make because of experience. You have no axe to grind. You're not looking for a job. And as a result, maybe more people should be listening to you and some of the other people out there. I listen because I think that you have a lot to contribute. Thank you.
Yeah, James, thank you so much. We know what the official line from those in power are.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'd like to just end by sending a message to the PE community, the racing community, and wish them well. I mean, I don't think anyone should have gone through what they went through yesterday. And to Headley and Yvette, I really, really hope that things work out for you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you coming on and appreciate you giving us that, because what you've been is, as usual, constructive. Some people will say it's destructive. To me and to most of the people out there that listen to the show, it's constructive. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thanks, James. Have a good one. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Steve Reid. And I'm going to finish it there. I'm not even going to go and get involved in this whole thing, but I want to echo sentiments to Yvette Bremner and Headley McGrath and all the patrons, and maybe especially, I know they have lots of patrons, but especially the International Racing Club, who have done an enormous amount to try and get people involved in South African racing. Joe DeMatta, Mike de Haast, these guys, for very little reward or no reward, from what I can see, get people to invest from overseas, and they have a lot of horses with Yvette Bremner, and rightly so, because she is a really, really good trainer, and she's gone to Joburg and shown the Joburg boys up. She's gone to Cape Town. She's gone everywhere and shown them. You know, these people, really, we're not doing well by them. We should be looking after them better, and I wish I could do more for them. All I can say is we wish and hope that your horses recover correctly and properly, and that you get through this terrible time, and that the racing industry does more to help people like yourselves who have really come across a tragedy. And this is a tragedy. And there are answers out there. Maybe we touched on them, maybe we didn't touch on them. But thank you so much for joining me. And to all of you that joined this live show, and to all of you that are going to listen to it later, hopefully there are points that you should be taking out of this, and maybe making a difference. We hope we make a difference. Have a great weekend's racing, and I'll be with you tomorrow morning for the Interbet preview for Turf and Team.